thing.
Hello, wilderness survivors, fellow mudbeards, and Yellowjackets if you're watching. And today, we got another Yellowjackets video to bring you guys. First off, I want to say, to most people who were saying that the series was going too slow, we got a lot of good Coach Ben stuff. I'm someone who really enjoys the characters, as said in most of my videos, so to see a lot of this narrative build-up and payoff with his character and the dynamic in him and the girls was really cool to see. Because no offense, season 2, I saw the build-up and I wanted to see more, and I hated that they left it off without much to take away from, except that maybe he potentially burned the cabin down. It did make me excited for season 3 though, and I feel like they paid it off perfectly. It'd suck if he died the minute he saw the girls, and I felt like their conflict with whether they should keep him alive or not was played out really well. That being said, they ended up feasting on him and putting his head on a platter, and that was unfortunate because of a bunch of hikers who happened to be in the woods around that time doing some frog research. Which some comments had pointed out that these people were frog researchers, and specifically who their names were and what they were doing before the episode even released. I'm not quite sure how people figured that out, but I also seen people on Twitter point some things out that I think were just straight up spoilers now in retrospect, so I might be avoiding some social media for a bit so I don't get spoiled on anything. That being said, these hikers show up, and Lottie does the one thing I was worried about post last episode, because last episode we see her walk away when all the girls pay attention to the hikers. I was worried she'd sneak behind and ruin any chance of a conversation by attacking one of them. And of course, that's what she does. See, one thing that confuses me about her character is she'll go from this soft, gentle person who's just kind of a victim of maybe hearing the wilderness and maybe desperate to hear the wilderness so she can help, to all of a sudden shoving people and getting angry at them in a lot of different scenes, to in some cases aggressively looking for the wilderness. When she's tripping out specifically, she seems to really get aggressive about it. But this is the one time where I don't think any of them were really tripping. I think they were just eating and having a fun time, and she went full violent mode. And don't get me wrong, I like that kind of stuff, but it does make you wonder how in touch with the wilderness she actually is. See, the wilderness can be both calm and peaceful, and unforgiving and filled with rage. So I guess if there was going to be any human representation of the wilderness, Lottie would be that. And this episode really displayed that well, because on the polar opposite side, we have a new character named Kodiak, otherwise known as Cody. See, he was a guide that the new hikers had hired so they could actually find their way through this Canadian wilderness. And through some small narrative context we got from him, I think he's more in touch with the wilderness than we may think, but I'll touch on that in a bit. Point is, during the struggle with everybody, he ends up taking a shot and shooting Melissa, which I was not necessarily expecting her to get shot, but I was kind of excited for the fact that the girls would finally have some actual conflict and opposing people against them. I'm rooting for this guy to go full Rambo and fight the girls in some way, maybe even taking a few of them down, but at the end of the day, he's not making it out, 100%. I do have a theory on where his character could go, but again, I'll touch on that in a minute. Anyways, Melissa's wounded, and Jen of course immediately runs to her aid because they always got each other's backs. Both actors absolutely killed it in the sequence of actually removing the arrow, but before the chase could ensue, Shauna tells Mari that if Melissa dies, she dies. And that will tie into a big Shauna Mari video I have coming out here very soon. Point is, Jen and Melissa did get their time to shine, which is interesting because on the opposite side of that, in the adult timeline, Ty has seemingly confirmed that they're both dead. Unless I'm misremembering or I misheard, they were talking about who had gotten close to Hannah, saying Jen and Melissa had. That's when the reveal came that both of them were dead. Unless maybe there was a misconception about Melissa's death, odds are we just got confirmation that Hilary Swank is not going to be an older version of Melissa. which I'm okay with, as fans of the channel know. No offense to either actors, but more for narrative reasons. And I do find it interesting what narrative could lead to them dying if they were getting close to Hannah. Ty is someone I also find very interesting, simply because everything going on with her and Van could be either spiritual or pure trauma/illness. See, Van's illness has led somehow to her hallucinating a lot of different things, which, if we've seen from last week, she gets a phone call and seemingly talks to the awake version of Ty, who is trapped behind Dark Ty. But seeing as Van has been hallucinating, is it possible that she's just not thinking that clearly and maybe is even hallucinating that? See, Ty has been acting pretty weird, and there is some suspicious things going on around her, like even that guy freaking out in the hospital saying, the devil, you won't take me," looking straight at Ty. So the hints of spirituality are very strong there. However, if you want to look for the hints of realism, that's there too. Is it possible that Van is hallucinating because of her illness, and Ty is just a direct product of her trauma and her desperation to keep Van alive? See, we get a lot of sincere moments with Ty desperate to keep Van safe. And do you also notice the juxtaposition between when Van is hallucinating Dirtmouth Ty and how it cuts to concerned, frantic Ty? Very different versions of the character. I feel that was indicative of the fact that Van is just hallucinating this Dark Ty business, which could at some point lead to either something happening where Van takes out Dark Ty or some sort of breakup happens between the two. That's if Van doesn't end up dying, which she is not looking very good at the moment. Shout out, by the way, to Liv. The actor absolutely killed it. They put a performance that made it seem so sincere and finally put into perspective where Van's character actually lies. If you see my predictions video for the beginning of the season and just throughout the series, I could never tell where Van was sitting with the whole believing in the wilderness and being cold and callous about it, especially the way she was talking to Travis. And then this season, she seems way more sympathetic. However, I think she's just someone who takes traumatic events on the chin, and you can kind of see that with her accepting her cancer diagnosis, as well as just the way she was talking about Coach Ben being shot. She obviously had some emotional attachment, and you could see her reaction the more they got connected to the actual moment. But it is interesting to notice that when it comes to the conversational topic or anything outside of that moment, Van is completely nonchalant about it. Either way, to talk about a pure performance perspective, they really helped me put into perspective where Van's character lies. The desperation and needing to find those people so they can finally go home, and especially Van being the first person to say, "We're actually going home," really hits hard. And maybe Hannah will be the key to the girls going home. It's very possible, but I do find it interesting that we got confirmation that she had actually had a teen pregnancy and had left this kid. But she had also left this kid with a message, basically apologizing for not being there for them. But if you notice, she refers to someone named, I think I heard Liam, but I know for sure I heard Alex. And I know in the adult timeline, the common misconception is that she had a daughter who's messing with them. But in my opinion, this is confirmation that it is Walter, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Walter is a foster kid. I originally was under the misconception that he had a foster sister named Crystal, but I was wrong. Turns out he has a foster mother. Foster mother because he was in the foster system because he was a teen pregnancy, was abandoned. Yes. Turns out he maybe was going to get revenge on the Yellowjackets once he figured some things out. I saw someone post that there was vultures around Natalie's stash for a long time before Misty finally got a hold of it. I saw a post confirming that there was the storage guy with Natalie's stuff was saying there was a lot of vultures trying to get into it. Perhaps he was one of those vultures? Point is, I think he was originally messing with the Yellowjackets, but then he found a lot of commonality within Misty. So now, while he is playing to get rid of the rest of the Yellowjackets, I think he wants Misty for himself. My theory is that the narrative is going to play out. Shauna is obviously not going to be the killer of Lottie. It's going to be revealed that Ty is. Ty is going to reveal that to Misty. Misty is going to ask Walter why he would do such a thing, but then she's going to realize, wait a minute, Walter's doing this because he's the one that is messing with us and doing all this stuff. Point is, I do think that Ty will end up being revealed to be the one that killed Lottie, and it will be through desperation or frustration with the idea of the wilderness coming to save Van. Either Lottie will tell her once again, like in their final phone call together, that Lottie was just losing it and none of the wilderness stuff was real, and that might push Van over the edge, so she pushes her down the stairs. Or Van decides, hey, maybe killing Lottie will be the ultimate sacrifice for the wilderness, and that will keep Van alive. Either way, it's her or it could be Walter, because with this newfound evidence, I do think he's much higher on the suspect list and much less of a red herring like I originally thought. And if he is Hannah's son, that might confirm that Hannah herself is probably not going to survive the wilderness. And I do see some people say that Hannah could be Pit Girl and they'll keep her around till winter, and I just gotta disagree. I do have a theory for Pit Girl, but that's coming out in my next Yellowjackets video. But let's touch on Hannah's other hiking companion, Cody. See, Cody is a character who is pretty interesting. He mentions that the reason he's so in tune with the wilderness is because one time he went out with a bow to go hunt a buck and he didn't come back out. We see he's also covered in scars, which means he could have fought some crazy things out there. Another thing to notice is when he hunts a squirrel, he says the words, "the wilderness provides." Sound familiar to anybody? If the idea of spirituality does exist, is it possible that both Hem and Lottie are both in tune with the wilderness for different reasons? And could it also be possible that the cabin guy, who is absolutely dead, had also been in tune with the wilderness? Again, I don't think the show will confirm whether the spiritual side is real or not. However, if they do leave it lingering, I think they'll give us enough here, like these little breadcrumbs, to make us think. Like Lottie screaming before something happens. Like Lottie and Kodiak having this strange connection to each other through the wilderness. And I do think at some point, they're going to come head to head and actually face off with each other. See, in the last episode, when Lottie notices something is up, she sees someone walking away from Ben's cage, giving her a nod. I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between if this was Cabin Guy as a ghost, Coach Ben as a ghost, or just the hunter Kodiak who was just walking up with everybody else. Maybe noticing in Lottie celebrating the wilderness because he had done the same, giving her a nod. And while you'd think this connection to the wilderness could maybe lead to them all getting along in some way, I think more conflict is bound to happen. See, there's more to Kodiak's character than just being really in tune with the wilderness. See, we see at one point he has a jacket with an entirely different person's name on it. And we also know that when push comes to shove, he's on his own. He was hired to protect Hannah, and he left her when the situation got tough. Reasonably so, because she had no survival skills whatsoever. And when you're dealing with a cult of cannibalistic girls, well, yeah, I'd want to do anything I could to survive as well. Point is, even though he had a moment with both Travis and Aquila, this guy is bound to put up a fight. See, Aquila and Travis both have weapons, so they might be able to hold him down until maybe something comes along. However, if you notice, when he fell off of the cliff and he's getting lifted up, he still has an arrow tucked into his back pocket. How this will play out, who knows? Point is, I don't really see him getting along with the girls that well. I'm just really hoping he puts up a bit of a fight before they inevitably take him down. I just really like the idea of the girls uniting as a tribe to take down an external and big threat. We also have a lot of characters that seemingly still shouldn't survive the 96 timeline, so they gotta go down somehow. Either way, I really enjoyed this episode. I really think the rest of the season is gonna kind of keep going with this tension between all these characters, and I will stand by the fact that this is my favorite season so far. Character-driven guy when it comes to storytelling, you all know that. But with that being said, more Yellowjackets videos coming out very soon. Appreciate you all tuning in and watching along, and thank you all for your support and feedback. And remember, if it's you versus a bunch of stranded high schoolers who are eating people, make sure I actually don't know how this guy's gonna survive. Anyways, have a good one.